Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I thought I would do a video that's going to upset some people because people don't like the truth and they don't like to be told that whatever rumor or myth that they heard is wrong. So let me get a sip of my water first. Get my beautiful radio voice going and let's talk about this. All right, this is a topic I have to argue with people frequently on. Even had to argue with one of my exes on. She was adamant that there was an absolute biological difference in the effect in the body between table sugar, which is sucrose, and high fructose corn syrup. So much so that you see people all the time who are like, oh, I like it when I go and get these Cokes from Mexico because they're made from real sugar, not this high fructose corn syrup stuff. And the people really do this. I've seen people who really avoid it and add table sugar to their stuff. All right, I'm just going to be honest, full stop. If you are regularly adding table sugar to your diet, you do not care about your health. Shut up. I don't want to hear it. You don't actually care about your health. Just stop pretending. That includes sugar in the raw. That includes brown sugar. It's all sucrose. Now, I can talk later in this video about fructose metabolism and why that is, but the cliff notes of that, assuming I want to run the video that long, the cliff notes of that is that any fructose that reaches your bloodstream, your body has to deal with. There's a quantitative amount, and when it starts to get excessive, what happens? Your liver has to process it, and when your liver starts getting loaded with a lot of fructose, this is where we run into problems. This is where we get insulin resistance, non-alcoholic fatty liver. This is the only way that this occurs outside of saturated fat. Like, this is the second pathway to where you see this occur in humans. Saturated fat, large amounts of saturated fat are the first. All right, so they're both equally bad, although we could argue about that. As far as the sucrose and high fructose corn syrup, people need to understand the difference is minuscule. We're talking like 5%, okay, the difference. So technically, in theory, high fructose corn syrup is worse by a little tiny margin. In other words, if you have X amount of thing you're concerned with, like right here, and you increase that amount by 5%. So if you have 100 grams of bad here, and you eat the same amount of high fructose corn syrup, you're going to get 105 grams. People not understand why. What are they? Sucrose is a glucose and a fructose molecule, right? So it's fairly simple molecule, but it ends up being 50% glucose as far as the calories in it, 50% fructose. Okay, that's already kind of bad because there's no fiber in it. There's no way to slow digestion. So when your stomach acids hit it, guess what? It breaks that bond apart. By the time it reaches your upper intestine, it is now just liberated glucose and fructose. Okay, high fructose corn syrup, the ratios are slightly different. It's only 45% glucose. And actually, I might be wrong. It might be 47%, but I believe it's 45% and 55% fructose. Someone will probably correct me. Well, it's only 53 or something. But if that is correct, then my point is even stronger. Okay, do people not understand how little difference that is? There is no high fructose corn syrup in your gut. There is no sucrose in your gut. Your stomach acids break these bonds down, and they are now just glucose and fructose floating around. There is a tiny amount more fructose in high fructose corn syrup, okay, a tiny amount. But when we're talking these sort of quantities of free fructose, it's just not that significant anymore. If you're eating enough high fructose corn syrup to where a significant portion of that ends up reaching your liver, to where your liver is having to process it, and you overload your liver's ability to do so, the same amount of sucrose is still going to cause the same effect. Okay, so for practical purposes, the difference is too small to actually matter. So when someone says, oh yeah, I'm doing this because it's healthier, then I've literally seen that. They'll switch from whatever to that, or they'll go to brown sugar, which is just table sugar with molasses added. Or I can see people with the sugar in the raw. I'm like, but it's not really any better. It's still refined fructose. Okay, and this is a problem. So when this comes up, and for people who don't understand, your gut And if you have healthy gut flora, you can process a lot of fructose, but it has to reach your gut, not your upper intestine. These refined sugars, the fructose reaches your bloodstream instantly, okay? Because it doesn't reach the lower intestine, it gets absorbed in the upper intestine before your gut flora has a chance to ferment it and turn it into glucose. Glucose is always fine, and people need to understand that. Unless you are already sick with a metabolic health issue, glucose itself is probably, in terms of energy sources, the single most efficient and healthiest energy source you could have. It is what our bodies run on. It's what they prefer. So our concern with the refined sugars is not an insulin response. It's not the glucose. It is the fructose and the way it's metabolized. So once fructose hits your bloodstream, you have enzymes that can convert a certain amount of it. And people say, well, how much? We have no way to know because there's a genetic component, there's an ethnic component, there's all sorts of individual genetics inside of a person, even of the same group. Okay, it varies from person to person. That amount of enzyme can be massively different from one person to the next. That can convert that fructose into glucose before it gets to your liver. Okay, once it gets to your liver has to handle it through a similar process to what it does alcohol. And you guys know what alcohol does to the liver. Small amounts, it can tolerate it, but it has to process it in the same manner because as far as our body is concerned, fructose is a poison. It can't use it, just like alcohol. Alcohol is a poison. Your body can't use it really properly. So your liver's job is to convert it into a more usable form so that you can metabolize it. It does the same thing with fructose. They put a similar burden on the liver. So obviously combining both together, they're not separate. Oh, your liver can handle this, so you just replace some of it with the other one, it'll be fine. No. They both use up similar resources and have a similar effect. So the problem is that. So when people try to say it's better, and I mean, I literally see it. Oh, I stay away from that stuff. I consume real sugar. Real sugar is still garbage. It is a refined fructose, just like we're talking about, that has had all the nutritional value stripped from it down to where it's just a refined sugar that hits your bloodstream quick, which would be fine if it was just glucose, but 50% of it's fructose. So the same people, oh yeah, that high fructose. Well, table sugar is still 50% fructose. And you're just as concerned for the exact same reasons. The exact same reasons. So when people try to pull that it's better, and they'll say stuff like, government subsidized corn, they're poisoning us with this. Well, if you weren't consuming this, you would just be using table sugar, which is just as bad. Like, it's not healthier, right? Your only option if you insist that you want stuff sweetened would be artificial sweeteners. That's your healthiest option. Or you could just eat fruit, which is completely tolerated extremely well by the body. But this is nonsense. It's a myth. It's not based on reality as far as table sugar being better than high fructose corn syrup. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I'll talk to you guys next time.